all the dirt about the Kapitanovsky family, starting way back.
All righty.
Okay.
And this is my wonderful niece, Joan.
Hi, everybody. Here we go. Jesse's going to start just telling us a little bit about the family.
Let me start with myself. I was born on February 17th, 1914. I am now 82 years of age. To go all the way back, my first recollection as a young child, I'm not sure whether I recall this or whether I dreamt it, but I remember sitting in a huge straw carriage with a big hood. And that was the carriage we used when my sister Eve was born and when Ruthie was born. That's my earliest recollection. Where I really recall and have memories was the time I went to kindergarten. It was the most important day of my life. And it snowed, and there were mountains of snow. And my father left the store and carried me on his shoulders to the kindergarten.
Where did you live at that point?
We lived at 930 Myrtle Avenue at that time, and I had to go to school on Stockton Street and Tompkins, which was a good 2.5 blocks. And I don't think I had boots, so he put me on his shoulder. And I went to school. And the school was actually 2 hours in the afternoon from 1 to 3. Then you went to upper kindergarten and you went in the morning. And then, you know, as I went on, there was elementary school, there was graduation from junior high school, there was 4 years at girls' high school, and when I left there, I went to work. And that's where my life really began. An important life for me, because I met my husband. He was my friend.
Wonderful Uncle Jack.
He was just the greatest. What can I tell you? And I had a wonderful life with him, wonderful courtship, a wonderful life, and I had him for 61 years. Now I am living in the same building that my sister lives in, which is also a very wonderful relationship. And now we keep ourselves busy, and I travel to see my children. My daughter lives in Texas, my son lives on the island. I have grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I have 2 wonderful granddaughters. One has 2 babies. One is living up in Buffalo. And then I have 2 grandsons in Texas. My daughter's children and her husband, and they're wonderful, and they're devoted, and they're constantly thinking of me.
Which is great.
Now to go back to what made my life,
Right.
I mean what my background was. As I say, my earliest recollection was kindergarten. The household was full at that time. The apartment was small. How far back do you want me to go?
What you
Think
heard
of with
from Bobby, about
yeah.
your family,
So
the
at
family
that
that you
time,
came from, and their days in
At
Europe.
that time, I would say at 5 and 6, I really knew what was going on in the household. So there was my mother, my father, and there were only 6 kids at that time. Murray was not yet born, because I was 8 years older. So there was 6 of us. Ruthie was 4 years younger. I was about 6 when Ruthie was born, just about that time. Ruthie was born. I remember a baby in the house. And then we had a holiday from school, February 22nd, was George Washington's birthday. And my bubby said in Yiddish, "Geh raus von Haus, geh, geh." I should go outside because the doctor was there and people were coming, and Bubby was having a baby, and his name was going to be Murray. Moshe.
What year was that? Do you remember?
8 years younger, so that would be, I was 8 at the time. He was born in February, I was 8 February 17th, which goes back to 1922. I was born in 1914, so Murray was born in 1922.
Okay, what was the family name and the...
family name was Kapitanovsky. And while it was a long name, we had a problem with all the Irish teachers at school. I remember one teacher in the 6th grade said to me, "Oh dear, it took me 6 months to learn how to say your brother Harry's name. Now I have to start all over again."
Do you know where the name came from?
I really don't know what the background of the name was. But if you want me to go back to where the folks came from...
Yeah, tell us a lot about that. We're really
All right.
interested, and I think that
All
the
right, let's go.
great-grandchildren especially.
Yeah, all right, let's go back now. Grandpa Max Kapitanovsky, his Russian name was Mokhtra. I would say it would be spelled, it wasn't Mordecai, it was Mokhtra, which would be like M-U-C-H-T-R-A, a true Russian name. And that's outside, that's the school.
That's okay.
So Mokhtra Kapitanovsky came from a little shtetl called Shpola. Now how he got together with Dvoira Sinofsky, I don't know. She came from Yelizavetagrad. So the only thing I can think of is he jumped the fence to court her because she was very, very beautiful. And from what I learned from the family, he worked in a wholesale grocery house, in which I saw pictures, of all the workers lined up, how they used to do that years ago, in rows, and the bottom row they were sitting, You saw a picture of that. Then I remember my mother telling me that when they came to this country, they came because of all the hardships there. Everything was anti-Jewish, and the Tsar would give out an order, go out and slaughter a few Jews. They did, and they decided they'd come. But they were the last of the family to leave. See, Mokhtra left his family. He went to Dvoira's family. And he had 2 brothers and a sister and a mother. His father had passed away before he came to this country. And he left them because Dvoira told me, that was my mother, that she went to Shpola to say goodbye to his parents when they were coming here. And they came because Dvoira came from a family of, let me count the sisters. I think there were 4 sisters and 2 brothers. She was somewhere in the middle. And they were all here. The only one left in Yelizavetagrad was Dvoira and Bobby Bina and Jack, her youngest son, and Dvoira and Mokhtra and their 2 children, which was Ethel and David. And they came to this country. Ethel was 2, and I guess David was just maybe a year old, something like that. And they came very comfortably. They came from Shpola to Amsterdam, 2nd class on a ship. And they came with little money, because after a while the rubles weren't worth anything, but they came with some money. And he set himself up in business here. First, the family took them all in. In those days, the sisters and brothers were here. The oldest sister, her name was Ethel. Then there was another sister whose name was Eva. And then there was Mushka. He was the Sinofsky. And then there was Esther and Sarah. And Dvoira was in between Mushka. I think she was older than Mushka. It was Ethel, Eva, and Dvoira. Then it was Mushka. And then it was Esther and Sarah and Jack. There were 5 girls and 2 boys.
Now, the name is interesting because you had Ethel also. They didn't name people who had passed away.
Like what?
Who was Ethel named for? If there
Evidently, Aunt Ethel must have been named for somebody way back. Could have been Bobby Bina's relatives, her uncle, her father. The story is her father, Bobby Bina's father, was slaughtered on the road. He was more like a traveling salesman. You know, he'd go from town to town selling. And he had his own little cart and wagon, and they pulled him out of the wagon and trampled him, the Cossacks. So he was gone. And she had a sister who came here. Bubby had a sister who came here with a husband who moved to San Francisco. And the husband was killed in the first earthquake in San Francisco in 1904. That's the family that Murray didn't like so much. That was, I forget their name again. It's funny, I can't think of their name. But she was a very rich lady. She lost her husband, and she married for a second time, and she had children with the second husband. I don't know that she had any children with the first one.
So that was the earthquake, 1906 or something, wasn't it?
The earthquake was 1906, was it?
I think.
The first earthquake in San Francisco. Oh, so many people were killed then. And she married a very wealthy man, and they moved to L.A. And she used to come to visit Bubby in New York. I remember it was a big event when that Tonto in California was coming. I remember she came, you know, there were so many kids, so the oldest kid got a present. That was Aunt Ethel. She got a little string of pearls. I forget her name. Her name will come to me. But they were a very wealthy family. As a matter of fact, when Bubby was in California visiting Uncle Murray, they went to visit her son, who's some big wheel in L.A. I can't think of the name.
Oh, Danny, you hear that? Let's see if
I
we
can't
can
think
find
of the name. Laurie would know the name. Laurie would know their name. Because Laurie and Murray and Mama went to visit. Murray was not too happy. He felt like, you know, they were being a little snooty. But, you know, you can't tell.
That
Sometimes...
should go over well when we played for them.
Huh? What did he
I
do?
said that should go over well when we played for them.
So that's that family in L.A., but Laurie must know that family.
Right.
So
those
where did
are
I
all
leave off?
Bubby's, those are all Bubby's.
Yeah, that was all of Bubby
All
Bena's
of Bubby
family.
Bena.
Yeah. She had...
That's what I'm named for.
Huh?
And Jane is named for.
That's right. Jane is named for her. Elaine has the middle name. I think you have the middle name
Barbara.
too. Barbara, yes. Jane Barbara and Elaine Bena.
Right.
There are 3 names for her. And so it went. And then Mama became very, very fertile in America. Came Ethel, David, Harry. Harry was her pet. He was so gorgeous. And I was number 4. And I had all kinds of problems. I got the croup and they nearly lost me. I had a bad case of psoriasis and eczema. I must have been gorgeous. Full of precious. Then, I don't remember Ruthie's birth, but I remember Murray being born. That was...
And my mother was after you. Mom was after you.
Mom was after me, because she was already a toddler, you know, when Ruthie was born. There's only 2 years between them, so she was a toddler. And growing up was not easy, but we had a dining room table, and everybody came home and sat around the dining room table to do homework. And there was couldn't sit all around and eat, but Bubby was always cooking. The pots were on the stove. Are you ready to eat? You brought your plate? The only time it was complete service with families, it was so exciting. All the families used to come for the Passover Seder. And we'd set up chairs and pillows, and everybody would stay overnight. It was fun.
Did you belong to a temple?
Huh?
Did you belong to a shul?
No, we didn't belong to a shul, but Grandpa used to buy tickets for the High Holy Days. And of course, we as kids used to hang out. And we used to go with a group who went to the Y. We had a Y in the neighborhood, and we used to go there to hang out. Your mother used to follow me, and I used to say, "Go home." I was older. Go home. Don't follow me. And she'd look at me, and Dora's my friend. We had 2 friends, Molly Earl and Dora. Molly was my age, Dora's my friend, too. I can go. So, listen, we used to have our times, and, you know, we really didn't have time to get too close when we were kids, because we were all fighting for a little bit of something up there.
What type of games did you play?
In the street.
They didn't have toys, like they had no Toys R Us.
I had one birthday party when I had I was sick for some reason, and I had a birthday party when I was already in junior high, I think. And, we went through school pretty quickly. We skipped. It must have been, I remember having a birthday party, and I had scarlet fever. And I was alone in the house, in my own bedroom. All the kids had to go off to Aunt Sonia's, to Tante Sonia's, because the doctor said if they don't get the kids out of the house, we're going to put a sign on the door. Well, we didn't want that because it meant Papa would have to close the store.
Right.
So all
Where
the
was
kids
the
went.
store?
Huh?
Where was the store?
The store was on Throop Avenue.
Was that near your parents?
Throop Avenue.
Yeah, Williamsburg.
Yeah. And he had that store for a while, and then it didn't do too well, so he moved to a store on
Right there
Myrtle.
where?
Throop Myrtle, between Myrtle and Vernon.
Same area.
Near Gil's family's store.
Really?
Yes,
That's
well,
where they all started?
Mhm.
You mean your
Fish
father's
store, right?
family?
Yeah, fish.
Where'd your father's family live?
That's my mother's family.
Oh, your mother's
Yeah,
family.
that's out of fruit vegetable.
And then growing up, I always wanted what I couldn't have. I wanted to go to Hebrew school. I went to Hebrew school. I went to Hebrew school. As a result, your mother never went because, how many quarters could you spend a week on Hebrew school? I wanted piano lessons, so there was a customer of Grandpa's whose daughter was a piano player. I mean, she was a piano teacher. And she taught me how to play the piano. After a year and a half, I played Beethoven's something or other, that little fantasy that you get in. I played that at a concert. It was drilled into me. And I
Was that where Jeffrey got his talent?
Yeah, Jeffrey got his musical talent from me. But I tell you, I never had, first of all, I had maybe 10 lessons. And to be part of it, she was having a little concert with her students. And I got a new dress for the occasion. And I was sweating all over. I must have been about 10. And I thought, I can't think of the name of that. It'll come to me.
We'll ask Jeffrey. He'll tell.
It's very common for the students to play that. Beethoven's, like a little handkerchief dance, they call it.
Right.
That's
Do you have any fun stories about Mom? About Eva? I know you were
Well,
telling me you
Mom,
called her.
the story, it's just usually when somebody had a problem. She was bitten by a cat.
Is that why she doesn't like cats?
We had a cat in the house who was not a cat for us to play with. She was a mouser.
Right.
And I'll never forget the time she was walking around the house and I said, Mama, in Jewish, what's this hanging out of the cat's backside? She was having kittens. And she'd get annoyed and say, this kind of business. And she'd get the cat away. She said, take care of the cat. She would take old bread and soak it in milk. And she'd put it in the dish for the cat to eat. And the cat had ashes. The ashes came from the stove that she used for baking and cooking. She had ashes, she'd cool them, she'd put them in a carton, and the cat would go in there to do whatever he had to do. And it's interesting, the cat does not smell. Those ashes did something from the coal that took the odor away from the cat. But the cat was a pain in the neck, and I don't know how it happened that the cat bit your mother. Either she played with it or she was bothering it, and he went for her. And I still remember she had an abscess like this, sitting on the kitchen table, and the doctor came in and lanced it, and everybody was watching. All the kids are standing.
That was before penicillin.
I was before
So she could have died
She
from it.
survived it. I stopped to think of all the things that we had as children. And Bubby had her own way of doing things. She had her own medicine. If you had a boil, or Davy growing up used to get boiled.
That's who I get it from. Bobby.
She would take brown soap and sugar and knead it till it was like a paste. She'd put it on the boil and cover it with whatever she had, a piece of old sheeting. It would stay that way for a while. The boil would come to a head and open and drip. And then she'd wash it with just soap and water. And we used to brush our teeth at the kitchen sink. It was the only way. We didn't have a toilet with a shower. It was a toilet and a tub, but no wash basin. You washed in the kitchen, and you took a bath whenever you wanted a bath. You know, it's just if you needed a bath, at least once a week we had a bath. Washed our hair. She kept us very clean. We'll say that. She would put the basin in the kitchen sink and wash our heads, you know. And we all learned we had to use Dr. Lyon's tooth powder. Did you ever hear Dr.
Yes.
Lyon's
Yes.
tooth? That's what we used to brush our teeth with. And we would gargle with salt water. And the things like that, you know. And she would wash and iron and starch and sprinkle. And the midi blouses were like boards. They were standing up for girls.
No, that I didn't learn from her. Well, I rebelled against that.
What? Oh, washing.
Yeah, right.
The midi blouses used to stand
I
up
don't
like that.
starch.
And that's what we had to wear. In the midi, in high school, girls' high, we had to wear a midi blouse every day. And when you came into the school, you got the color of the tie of the graduating class. Class that graduated, when I went in, handed over a purple tie. I went in well, they called it then, it was the second year of high school. It was the sophomore year, because we already did a year in junior high school. So I had a purple tie until I graduated, which was 3 years later, in 1930. Then, I'm really not going in some kind of rotation. I'm going
Well, that's okay. It's very interesting because I never knew any of these things.
No. And as I say, when I got out of high school, I already knew Jack. He became a family member, and he was helping everybody. And he was still going to school.
Was Ethel married at that time?
Ethel was just married when I got out of high school.
And Davy? Was Davy married then?
She must have been married before, because when I was in high school when Elaine was born, I was 15. I was 15 when Elaine was born, which would have been, I was 16. I graduated high school in 1930. I was 16 when I left high school. And Elaine must have been born the year before, because I was still in I remember I was 15, and we had a phone booth in the school. For 5 cents, I kept calling the hospital to see how Ethel was doing. She was in labor for about 2 days. So then Elaine was born.
You had to stay a long time in the hospital, right?
Yeah,
When you
those
gave
days,
birth?
10 days.
They didn't let you out of bed?
Yeah, so she was already born, and Ethel had been married when I was about 13, I guess, 2 or 3 years before that. And it was a big event, you know, a wedding. We had the wedding in Mrs. Tamarin's house. I don't know if they ever knew about Mrs. Tamarin.
Who was Mrs. Tamarin?
She used to be our next door neighbor, and she was a Russian lady. Her name was Gusta, and her husband's name was, I'm trying to think. It's also, there's a whole family there.
Was that
Gusta.
in Williamsburg?
Yeah, that was in Williamsburg on my land. There was Gusta and Grisha and Katya.
Myrtle Avenue.
Myrtle Avenue between Tompkins and through.
Do you remember the address?
930 Myrtle Avenue. It's
930
projects there now. Oh, many years ago when Janie was in, before she was married to Bobby, she came in and I took her for a trip. We got off the Williamsburg Bridge and we went all the way up, and I took her through Myrtle Avenue and showed her where I lived. Wouldn't recognize it, it's all projects now. They used to be 4-story tenements. And very nice people lived there. And we played on the street. We played Potsy on the street. And there were cars running their car tracks, so we used to flatten the beer tops and the metal tops to get them flat so they could be a Potsy. You know, we could throw them. We'd make it on the
Kicking
street.
the can. You played kicking the can too, right?
Can, yeah, we'd take bottles on New Year's Eve and smash the bottles. Get killed for doing it.
Well, how was Bubby with discipline?
Not very much discipline, no. She used to tell stories. First of all, she was always sick. Now, we don't know how sick she really was, but she always had a headache.
I know.
And she'd walk around the house with a towel tied around her head. We knew she had a headache. She couldn't breathe. And it was understandable. We lived in 4 rooms. no cross ventilation. There were 9 people in 4 rooms. That was after Uncle Jack moved out and Bubby moved out. See, Bubby lived with us too, but
Bobby Bean.
Bubby Bina. But Zayda, Shlomo Zayda, lived alone for a while, and then she went to live with him. They were not too compatible, those two.
Bobby and Schlerman, they
Bina
were.
and Shlomo, not too compatible. She was always picking on him. But they too lived on Myrtle Avenue, and I remember Bubby Bina came holidays. She used to bake. She used to bake teglach and all kinds of nice cookie cakes, you know, real Russian style.
Did she look like Bobby? Like Bobby Dora?
Well, she was a beautiful woman if you took her apart, feature by feature. She had a small nose, a round face, and very, what should I say? I'd call her aggressive. She'd come in with a shawl on her shoulders, and she'd take over. And she was angry with your grandfather because your grandma was having so many kids. She had 7, of course, all of them had. The only one that was, Aunt Sarah had 3, but Bubby had 7 children. And she was always not feeling well, so she was always there to help her, take care of her, cook. She used to teach Ethel how to cook. And she used to, Ethel was the oldest, so she used to make Ethel's life miserable because Ethel wasn't cleaning her house properly, and you know, you have to understand that your mother is sick, you have to take over. And Ethel would say, God, she was an angry sister.
Well, a lot of film.
It's understandable.
You understand it. Mm-hmm.
She wanted beautiful clothes. She used to get dressed up. When she was 15 and 16, she would date. And, we knew she was having a date. Everybody out of the house. Because rain or snow in the house. Because somebody was coming to call for her.
All in the 4 rooms, huh?
All in the 4 rooms.
1 bathroom?
Huh?
1 bathroom?
One bathroom.
Where did you sleep?
We slept so. In the bedroom was a big bed for your grandma and grandpa. There was a crib for the youngest child. There was some kind of a folding cot. And then we had a big ice box with a flat top, which became a bed. It was bad as something be that. Your mother used to sleep on top of it. And then there was a bedroom for Ruthie, Ethel, and I. And the boys slept in what was the dining room. Murray and David slept in the dining room.
Did you have electricity?
Huh?
Did you have electricity?
We got it. I remember getting electricity. I remember the gas mantles. And then, it was so exciting, we had to give a $2 raise. I think the rent was $27 a month. Which was a lot of money in those days, though.
Yeah.
And we had to give them a raise to 27, so that they put electricity in. And I remember the mantles, you know, it was some kind of a fabric. And the gas went through, and you took a match and you lit this mantle, which didn't burn, it just gave you light. So then we had electricity, and
Did you have a
then they
telephone?
put steam heat in,
Oh.
and we finally got a telephone. Just before, when I started to work, just before that, we had a telephone. And I got out of high school, 1930, the Depression. No jobs. They were giving jobs to girls for $5 and $6 a week in the office. And Logers was a big department store on Fulton Street, Brooklyn. They had an ad in the paper. They were doing a big promotion, and they needed salespeople. And they set up, this was the first department store that had a basement with moderate price clothing, because Logers was a very high class store. I got a job in the basement selling hosiery. And it was a good job. I got $16 a week. And I don't know how many hundreds.
That sounded like a lot.
In those days, it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because coffee was 10 cents, so it was $16 a week. And if I sold over a certain amount, I got 1% commission, so sometimes I come out with $2 or $3 more on a weekly basis. So $10 of that went home. That was, you know, you had to turn money in because things kept getting worse business-wise. And Grandpa got ill.
Yeah, what was wrong? What was wrong with him? Diabetes?
Diabetic. He became a diabetic at quite an early age. And
How in his 40s?
I would say in his 50s. I would say in his 50s. He was obese. He was a very heavy man.
Really?
With
Because
a big stomach.
photographs of him,
As a younger man, he was thin, and as an older man, the diabetes took away a lot of his fat. He became very bony after they started treating him for the diabetes. But as a little child, I used to remember him with a big fat belly, and he'd come out of the store with the white apron on, and she was heavy.
and you have no pictures of that at all. You have no...
Not at that
Nobody had
time.
any
No,
pictures of
no.
that?
I have to look through a lot of my old pictures that I stored on top. One day, and take it all down and go through and see if because I have some of Bubby's things there.
Mhm.
What Aunt Deborah did was she took everything that belonged to Bubby, took it in a carton and put it down in my basement.
Mhm.
And it deteriorated. I didn't even know that she had done this. I knew she put things down, but I thought it was her own.
Uh-huh. There may be some pictures.
Huh?
There may be some pictures
I have to look through and see.
in there.
But there are no pictures of the children. Nobody ever had a picture taken of the kids. I think there was a picture of Murray on a horse. I think he was the only one. And Eve and I were on the horse. Eve was on the horse, and I was standing next to her.
Would the pony man come around?
Oh, yeah, he came around and for 50 cents, and Bubby used to chase us if we came up. And it was 50 cents, and he'll give us a picture. She was so strapped that, it wasn't as though Grandpa made a certain amount every week. The money would come in, and the fruit would decay, and the man that sold him the fruit would come, they deliver he didn't have a truck to pick it up. Had a horse and wagon, but that came later. But at that time, they used to deliver. Oh, you ordered a box of apples, you ordered a box of this, that. Here's your bill. And a day or two later, they came to collect. They gave you a chance to sell it. But half the time,
Right.
it was never enough to pay the bills. And then you had to bring money home. We needed food, we needed shoes, we needed this.
So Bubby didn't work there with him?
No.
She was home with you?
She was home with the kids. She'd go into the store, but not.
So who else worked in the store?
The boys, as they got older, would help in the store. And I would help in the store. I used to know how to cut up a flounder. But he had fish.
Oh, we had fish and fruit?
Fish and fruit and vegetables and some dry things, sundries like prunes and raisins. And the bananas used to hang. It was a nice store.
Where did they get the fruit from?
He would go to the wholesale market.
Now, where did they get it from? Because now a lot of it is brought in from South America.
I think most of it, no, it was not South American fruit. Most of it was California.
And how did it get there?
It used to
There was
come
no
in,
planes.
it's by train. There was, years ago, there was a company called United Fruit Packers. They were very big. And they used to arrange to sell to all these little fruit stores, grocery stores. Everybody, it was a mom and papa store in most cases. If anything, Bubby Bina used to help in the store because Zaid the Schleimer had a fish stand in Delmonico Place, which was, all the Yachnists used to go to Delmonico Place. They
What's
didn't
the
buy in the neighborhood stores.
Yeah.
A Yachnist, one who goes around looking for bargains. The Yenta.
Oh, yeah. I should take Yiddish lessons from you. Yeah. Okay.
So I remember Grandpa and Bubby Bina used to sit in front of the store occasionally. The Yasnagate, she'd go with a big shopping bag, and she'd go to Delmonico Place, which is like...
So they were Sinofsky's? That was Sinofsky?
No, the Sinofskys also had a store on Throop Avenue, Mushkin.
But Bina was...
No, Bina was our Bubby.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a Sinofsky. She was my Bubby, your great Bubby.
Right.
She was
She
Bina Sinofsky.
Okay, what was she before that, though? What was Ruth?
Her name, she was Berga.
Berga.
Her maiden name was Berga. How do I know
Okay,
that?
that's what I was wondering.
Because she had family. She had a brother who was a rabbi in Philadelphia.
I didn't know our Rabbi Wiener.
He was
That's
Feta
what-
Berga. I don't know, Feta's uncle.
Feta
And,
Berga?
yeah, and Mima Berga. They lived in Philadelphia. And there was a cousin, what's his name in Philadelphia, the cousin?
That's where Rabbi Wiener was from. His
Who?
whole family, Rabbi Wiener, our rabbi's
You
family.
came from there?
Philadelphia. from a rabbi's family. So that's it.
They had 2 children. They had a daughter and a son, the Bergers. And the daughter came to visit us. She was unable to have children. She was married. That time goes back. I was about 14 or 15. And she came to visit, and she insisted that I come back with her to Philadelphia. Her brother, who was my Bobby Bina's cousin, she was a cousin too. I can't think of his name. Usha? Was it Usha?
I'll have to sit down and make a tree one day.
Huh?
That one day I'm going to sit down with you and we have to make a tree of all these people because that would save a lot of time.
His name was Usha. That was her cousin who lived there. So, Feta Berger and Mima Berger.
Mima just means
It means
mother.
hunter, aunt.
Aunt.
A Mima's an aunt. They lived in Philadelphia, and their daughter came to visit, and I had to come, insisted that I come back and that was some treat. They were about 13 or 14 to go to Philadelphia and stay with them, summertime, for about 3 weeks. And I had such fun because Usha's children had 2 girls my age, and we used to sleep together. It was such a wonderful, it's such a
They're
wonderful
cousins. They
summer.
are
It was
cousins.
wonderful, yeah. It was really very
So
nice.
that's Berger. What other family names? Well, you said something with an R. There was another
R were the Rothbergs,
Rothbergs. Who were they?
Ethel Rothberg, who was the oldest sister in the family, in the Sinofsky family.
Okay, that was Bobby's
Bobby's
Bina.
oldest
Bobby Bina.
daughter, Bobby Bina's oldest daughter was Ethel Rothberg. She was Tante Ethel,
Bobby Bina's oldest daughter.
was
Okay.
Tante Ethel. And she had, trying to think, Charlie, Eva, Sophie, Minnie, Jack.
I remember Minnie, the name Minnie. Or was it just
I
like
don't think you would know her.
Minnie was the cat, oh, excuse me.
Minnie was the cat. We had about 14 cats. Each one was Minnie.
Minnie, why Minnie?
I think Minnie was the cat that bit your mother.
Right. Okay, so Ethel Rothberg. Okay, so there were Rothbergs and Bergers. What are the names?
Berger was Bobby's maiden name, Bina Berger. And
Bina Berger,
then there was
Sinofsky.
Sinofsky. That's as far as I can go. And then
Okay, do you know
Capita.
where they're buried? Any of them? Are they all out in Montefiore?
Bobby is buried here in New York somewhere. I forget what cemetery.
Bobby Bina? Or
Yeah. She's buried here, so is
Bobby? In New York
Schreiner.
City?
New York City. You know, in Queens, I forget which cemetery, one of them.
But yeah, one of those maybe? I don't know.
Right out off the Queens border.
Ridgewood, Brooklyn. Where they,
Yeah, where Brooklyn and
Brooklyn,
Queens
Queens
meet. Right.
Yeah. There are about 5 different cemeteries.
That's right, one of those cemeteries. Bobby Bean is buried there, Schleimer was buried there, Mushka is buried there, they're all buried there, most of them were buried.
Mushka was...
Mushka was
Your
Murray,
cousin.
he was a Sinofsky. He was Bobby Bina's
Brother?
son, no, it was her son. She had 2 sons, Mushka and Jack. And Uncle Jack was the youngest son.
Oh,
He's the one that came to America. He was about 17 when he came.
Jack, I knew.
Yeah.
Jack was
Oh, yeah,
married to
yeah.
Beatty.
That's right. Jack was what?
Married to Beatty? No,
Yes, he was married to Aunt Beatty, right.
She made those beautiful... She knitted.
She
very
knitted. She was a knitting lady. She came from a knitting family. Her brother had a knitting mill up in Massachusetts somewhere.
well. Oh, yeah, that's why she made beautiful things.
You know, you go back and you meet people. When I got my first job, my first big job was with Youth Guild. After that, when I retired from Youth Guild in 1977, I took a part-time job with a lady in the gift building at 225 Fifth Avenue. And she had doll houses and all the little doll furniture, the miniature furniture, you know. It was a very interesting place. And a lady comes in from Fall River, Massachusetts to buy these little things. And we get into conversation. I said, Fall River. I had an aunt who had a brother that had a knitting place up there, a knitting mill. Oh, I know him, Frank Rice's. That was Beatty's brother, was Frank Rice's. And this lady
Wow.
got the conversation. She flew her own airplane. And And I met such interesting people in that office. You know, it was a showroom
That is
office.
interesting,
I only worked there part-time, but I was there basically to talk to people, and at the end of the month I would do her bookkeeping, you know. She sold, and, you know, it was a small bookkeeping thing, but I did it, and get the sales and the things ready, and I used to work 5 days a week, then I went to 3 days, and I was well paid, but it was very interesting. But I'll never forget this lady. She knew the whole Rice's family.
Yeah. It's all one family, anyway. Did they ever tell stories about Russia? Or they didn't talk much about it?
Russia, the stories of Russia was how they were abused. They were frightened. Bubby tells the stories of growing up in the little house in Russia, where Bubby had a cow and a calf.
Jane has a cat.
Yeah, I had rubbed off the cow and a calf, and she used to grow her own vegetables and milk the cow. And when it was very, very cold, snowy, she used to bring the calf in to keep warm near the stove. That was the stories of Russia.
Did they say what kind of, what they lived in, what was it?
It must have been a shack.
Shack?
A shtetl, a shack and a shtetl. Where are you headed for?
That's where. Emily.
She's reached that age.
That's a family.
How old are you now?
Family trade.
56?
55.
55. I know she's a couple of years younger than Mark. Mark hit 58 in March. And you?
59.
Already hit 59? Yeah, the same. Well, you're younger, a little older than Mark. Mark was just 58.
Okay?
What I know about Russia was, most of them that spoke, was they called it Dehaim in Yiddish, the home, their homeland, which they missed. They missed very much. They were abused. They were mistreated. When I say abused and mistreated, they were frightened all the time, because the Tsar would suddenly give an order. They had to go out to the countryside and kill the Jews, you know, anybody that was Jewish. They had lots of Christian neighbors who used to hide them. And what they would do, they would put a little Christian god, you know, Jesus in the window. Bubby would call it a guttel. And she said they put the guttels in the window so that when the Cossacks passed and they saw this, you know, the cross and the Jesus and all that, all the symbols, you know, Christianity, they passed the house. And they were hiding Jews in the meantime. And of course the Jews would treat these Christians very well. Money, gifts, things that would make them go.
And what year?
Well, this must have been the early 1900s. Bubby was, let's see, she was 28 when I was born, which was 1914. So she must have been born, take 28 years away, she was 14 from 1900, she was born in 1896. That's the only way I knew, and he was... So
1886.
1886, you're right. 14 years off, 1886, right. And as she was growing up, she came here, if she was 28 when I was born, I was 7 years younger than Ethel, so she must have been 21 when Ethel was born, and probably 20 when she was married, which would have been 1900 something, right? My mathematics, I'm forgetting.
Well, 1906.
Yeah, she was
20 years.
20 years.
Born
All right, and I have to
1886.
go back to the early 1900s, her growing up. I don't think there was anything exciting in her growing up. They were not allowed to go to school. There was no school for them. To go to the Yiddish school, only the boys went. They learned to read and write and to daven, you know. So she didn't even go to a Yiddish school where she could never read a Jewish paper. Grandpa, Max, read the Jewish paper.
She used to sign her name, too, with an X.
Yeah, she'd done. Then, of course, later on, you know, she went to school here, learned English, but she
She was a
never...
very bright woman, though. She was very...
She learned the Russian language by speaking to one another, speaking to the family. Mostly Yiddish was spoken. They all spoke Yiddish. Even her Russian was not that great. When we lived next door to the Tamarins, who are from the heart of Russia, they used to entertain all the educated people from Russia, the intelligentsia, like the beer they were. And she too, she had a 4-room apartment. They would gather in her house. She had a Victrola. She had a telephone. That was a sign of whatever it was. And they used to sit around the table and discuss politics, Russian history. She came from a family, her brother was a pharmacist, the Tamarin family. She and Bubby were very close. So as I say, there was always that fear that the Cossacks were coming. And everything was around the house. And as I say, her sisters and her brothers left when she was very young. They were already in America. And the only one left in Russia was Bubby Bina and Jack and Grandma and Grandpa and the 2 kids that were born after their marriage. They came here in 1909. Ethel was born in 1907. And 2 years, she was 2 years. And Dave must have been an infant, under a year old or something like that.
Were the shtetls that they lived in near any big city,
I don't know. I really don't know. I used to pin her down geographically. And the only way I could find out is if I knew somebody who knew the shtetls.
Well, you have a shtetl finder.
I will find
See if you can find out. See, now I don't think they came from the Ukraine. The Ukraine is the southern part of Russia, right? They were more north.
Lithuania? Lithuania area?
Not into it, but they must have traveled. See, they have to travel to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, Holland. At that time it was called Holland, to get their boat. So I'm sure they didn't travel maybe a day or, the way travel was then. I don't think they, so she didn't know too much, didn't talk too much about Russia, except they talk about the Goyim, and they'd have to hide from the Goyim and what Bubby Bina would make and cook, as they were growing up. She learned to sew, she learned to do beautiful handwork, Bubby. She used to sew clothes for us.
Really? I know she was a good cook. I liked her.
She was a good cook, simple cooking.
Yeah.
She had a good understanding of what you should eat, vegetables and fruit, and how to cook fish and meat, and always quality. She used to say, quality counts. It has to be good quality, which is so.
Yeah, see, she taught me well. She'd love what I'm doing now.
I'm sure she would.
Yeah.
I'm sure she would.
Fruits, vegetables. So she didn't have her heart problem until she came here, right?
She came here, she had stomach problems. She used to go to a stomach doctor.
I know she had acidophilus, she told me
She
about.
used to take acidophilus milk. She, when we questioned her, she'd say, the doctor said she has a catarrh in her stomach, a catarrh. And she used to go to a very old doctor. That took a lot of money, too. There was no money in the family, but she had to pay the doctor in those days big fees. She'd call him a specialist. A big doctor, a specialist, big. And she said the doctor would sit opposite her and give her a lecture, and he'd tell her that the important thing is not to worry. Worry is making...
She was a worrier?
She was always worried. Kids, and how do you make a living, and how do you live better than 4 rooms with all these kids? Never wonder how we got out of that 4-room apartment.
How'd you get out of it? Burned down? No?
Sister Jessie.
Oh, really? You got them out of it?
I shall never forget. I went to school with a girl by the name of Rebecca Schenker. Came from a very, moderate family. Her father was a clothing worker. They lived all the way into Williamsburg on Haywood Street somewhere. And she had a brother who was a pharmacist and sisters who were working. She was the youngest. And there was money coming in, and she always had an allowance of money, very, very thrifty. If she'd get $2 for an allowance, she saved $1. She had money. And she was talking about how she saves money. She had what to save, so she saved money. We got out of high school, she went to work, she got a job as a bookkeeper for $8 a week. She used to come and visit. At that time, when I was out of high school, I was already with Jack. He was my boyfriend, my fellow. And then it reached a point when I was past 17, I was already engaged, and Jack gave me a diamond ring. And we had to invite the family to the house, and the 4 rooms. And Ethel and Ben moved in with us with Elaine because Ben lost his job. Oh, we were one happy family. Depression, Ben lost his job, and I want you to know, he needed $2, and I had a gold watch that Jack gave me. And I said, take the watch and pocket, and take the money for yourself. They wouldn't pawn it for him. They wouldn't give him anything for the watch. I don't know why, what the reason was, but he brought me back the watch. I said, you know, until you get back the money, then you'll take it out. That was a popular thing in those days. So I said to Rebecca, you know, to be friendly with her, I says, we can get an apartment. Ethel found out, Bubby, on Lewis Avenue, there was a tenement with 6 rooms, like a railroad, not really a railroad flat, and we had windows in every room.
That was also the Lower East Side?
6 rooms. No, this was Lewis Avenue. This was still Williamsburg.
Williamsburg. Oh, that's right.
This was Lewis Avenue, right off Broadway. It was between Lewis and Sumner. It was a nice big house, nice area. And I said, oh my God, we'll be able. We had finally paid off a dining room set. We'll be able to take the dining room set and put it there, and there's 4 rooms we can use as bedrooms. And when Ben was still with us. And the rent, I think, was around, it was a lot. It was around $45 a month. I said to Rebecca, if I had the money to help them move out, I need $50. She loaned me $50, Rebecca. I still remember that.
Wow.
And I was working already. So with that $50, we moved to Lewis Avenue. And Ethel was already working too, so she had the money to pay the month's
What did
rent.
Ethel do? She bookkeeper?
She went to work in a store. She was selling children's clothing. She was a sales girl. She worked on Knickerbocker Avenue. I don't know if you know that area. That was an Italian neighborhood. It was closer to Queens, I'd say, per se, like Ridgewood.
Yeah.
And so we moved to Lewis Avenue. We fixed up the house, and I worked like a beaver for weekends. We put curtains up and cleaned it up, and I invited Jack's parents for dinner. So they gave me the ring. And it was very nice. This is where I lived, and that was all. It didn't make any difference to Jack. I don't know, but I'm sure it didn't make any difference to his parents because they also came from poor stock, and they were fortunate enough to have worked themselves up to be very comfortable people, and they were over the years. So I felt better about that, and we had a little room. There was what was considered a living room and dining room, so we had the dining room set, and what would have been the living room was Ethel's bedroom, and Elaine was there. We had a lot of space there. We had a little bedroom off the kitchen where Murray and Harry slept, and Grandma and Grandpa had a bedroom, and I had a bedroom with your mother and Ruthie.
Where was David?
David was already married. Was he? Yes, he was already married when we moved. We must have moved when I was 17. It was right after he was married, I think, when we moved. Because he was gone already. That was our move.
What did he do? What did David do?
Davey worked for a company that sold housewares, pots and pans primarily. And then he went into business for himself, which failed. It was no good. It had mostly to do with household items. And Harry was busy. He graduated high school. He went to CCNY. And then he dropped out after 2 years. Brilliant. He was very unhappy because there was no money in the family. And he decided to take a shot at working. And he got a job with the Brooklyn Union Gas Company. And he worked there for about a year. He went back to school. And he decided to become a social worker. He got a degree from City College. And then he went to do some social work. And he got a job with the welfare department. I was already married at that time. Had a job at the welfare department. I moved into my apartment on Avenue T. Do you remember that?
Yeah. 712 or 721 or something?
1716, they have new
1716, okay.
Three-room apartment.
Yeah.
That apartment,
Co-op now.
is it co-op?
Condo or co-op,
I think
yeah.
rabbis
Right.
own it or something,
Yeah.
huh? You know somebody that owns it? or-
No, I just saw a sign out,
Oh,
co-op
yeah.
apartments for
But
rent.
I think rabbis took it over, because
Yeah.
people with yarmulkes were there all the time. So when I moved into that apartment, it was married, 3 of the biggest rooms, and that became the center. In those 3 rooms, your mother courted your father. Ethel and Ben used to come. They worked they were still living on Lewis Avenue. And Ben used to come every Monday night to bowl with your father. And
Jack used to bowl.
George
Yeah,
Bell and
too.
Jack. Yeah, they all bowled together. Then, and Ethel used to come and they'd stay overnight, have a studio couch, and a couch in the living room, a couch in the bedroom. I'd come home, your mother had a key, and Harry had a key, and then Harry moved in after a while, and I'd come home, your mother and father were sitting on the couch, my best friend Sandra, her husband, was sitting on the couch, everybody made out on that couch. That couch And your mother, when she moved from your other grandmother's house, she was having her apartment painted. She came to stay in my house. In the living room, we opened the couch. And then came Mark. And in that foyer, that was amazing. I had a couch, a desk, the big carriage came in there. And it was activity all
And
the time.
when did Bobby move over to East 24th Street?
After I was living there for a while, Mark was maybe 2 or 3, Aunt Ethel decided she'd like to move. This apartment was available, 2-family house, a big thing. There too, we had to get Harry to agree to move because he had to be one of the contributors and there was furniture needed. So she had a battle with Harry. Harry didn't want to move. He was very content living in my apartment. He was working out of the office on Kings Highway.
So who was in Lewis Avenue? Just Ethel
Huh?
then? Ethel was in Lewis Avenue still at that point?
They were all there. They were all on Lewis Avenue.
Oh, they were all on
Harry,
Lewis
yeah.
Avenue.
But Harry came to stay with me. He'd go home for his clothes and,
Oh,
it
okay,
reached a point where it was impossible because the bathroom was right next to the bedroom. Harry would get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'd hear somebody at my door, I think. It wasn't complete move. He was working out of the office on Kings Highway, and he didn't want to travel back and forth from Williamsburg. So he'd go home, get his clothes, and come back. But he was a wonderful brother, there's no doubt, but he was very inconsiderate. Everything, no matter where he was, he thought only of himself in a way, This is what I need. I can't travel back and forth from Williamsburg to that office, even if it means imposing on my sister. And I had a baby at the time. Mark was very young. So the crib was in my bedroom. Harry slept in the foyer. And he would get up. He would like to take a bath every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. He wouldn't take a quick shower. Jack was sleeping. I was sleeping. The baby was sleeping. It was smack up against the bathroom. And the water was running for hours. And how do I tell him? And Jack would say, it's very inconsiderate. The baby is sleeping. He says, all right, I wake up, I don't care. Wakes up the baby, wakes up you, you need your rest too. And Bubby was a funny lady. If Harry wanted it, she would defend him.
Now, where was Bobby at this point? On Lewis Avenue?
Bobby was still on Lewis Avenue. Bubby, Ethel, and Ben and Elaine were on Lewis
So
Avenue.
they had 6 rooms, just the 4 of them.
Yeah. Your mother was still home then. I think your mother was still home.
Still
And
home.
Ruthie was home.
Oh, Ruthie. Oh.
Yeah, Ruthie and
Where
your
was
mother.
my Murray?
Huh?
And Murray?
Murray was still home too. Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
only one out was Harry. Yeah, Murray was still home. Murray was going to school at that.
Now, how'd you travel back and forth? Go trolley? Was it only trolleys?
Where
Buses
to
From
Williamsburg?
yeah.
I used to go with the train. The Brighton train used to take me to the Myrtle Avenue station at that time. And then I would take the Myrtle Avenue trolley down to Lewis Avenue.
How much did it cost?
It was 10 cents on the train and 10 cents on the trolley. And then I was driving too, but I didn't have the car. Jack used to take the car to work, come back. And sometimes I'd get up early in the morning and drive him to work, and I'd take the car back, and I'd have the car for the day, and I'd see the family, and then I used to go pick him up. But for the most part, I never had the car at my disposal, because he used it all day. So that was the side. Then they moved to 24th Street. And Ethel's cry was, Harry's imposing on Jesse and we should move and take that apartment. It was a beautiful apartment they had on 24th Street.
I remember that one.
Yeah. So and then the war came, and that was, I will never forget that day, that Sunday morning. We had been in Coney Island, we took more on the rides, and we're driving back, and Harry is walking up and back on the avenue, pacing, excited, nervous. I said, what's the matter? He says, well, didn't you hear the news? Japan invaded us. So we went home, put the radio on, we had television at that time, and then, of course, the boys were being drafted. I never won anything in my life, and now I'm 1A. He was carrying on before he went into the Army. He was sick. And then he went in, and that really...
So there's no indication as he was growing up that he had...
His behavior was different. He was always different. And Bubby used to...
In what way? Like how would...
He wanted his place setting at the table, and there had to be a salad, and it had to be... And Bubby used to fix it for him. Lettuce and tomatoes and whatever. He had salmon or, some such thing was always set up for him first. He'd have a salad, and then he'd have his main dish. And she catered to him.
But there was no indication of just how ill he was growing up?
Well, it was an illness where I think it was a certain amount of illness where he was inconsiderate,
Yeah, but they said he was schizophrenic, so that's...
Well, he used to act out. He would act out. He would stand in front of the mirror and, we'd watch him sometimes stand in front of the mirror and he'd conduct an orchestra and sing.
Did he talk about voices? About that
Always anti-government, what was going on in the world.
Did he hear voices? Did he say?
I wouldn't know.
He never said anything. He never said that.
Never said anything.
Like if he would be conducting an orchestra, what would make him do it?
That's right. We just accepted the fact that there was no place for him to go. He had no privacy. He couldn't go and hide with his fantasies anywhere.
How did he and Davy get along?
Didn't get along at all. Davy had peculiarities. He was rough and gruff, and he always had an odd name for everybody. Nobody had their right name. Ruthie was Maggie. She was Maggie.
It's a strange family. You think your family was strange, so we got...
Ruthie was Maggie. Somebody else was a sourpuss. Harry was a queer. Everybody had that.
What were you? I
don't know what I was. I used to avoid him like the plague. Yessel used to call me. Yessel, something like that. But
what about Mama? What about Mom?
I don't think he bothered too much with me or your mother. It was Harry and Ruthie. He was very fond of Murray. Murray was a baby. We were all growing up already, and all of a sudden Murray came. He'd carry him around on his hand and hang him up on the woodwork and let him hang. So, that's right.
So 24th Street, that's the house that I knew, 2024?
Whatever the number was. 24th Street was the change in their lifestyle. Everything seemed to improve a little. Harry had his job. He was near home. He was dating a young girl who lived next door to the family on 24th Street, to our family. It was a very nice girl. I forget her name. He was dating her. And as a matter of fact, the holiday came along and I had to go with him to a handbag store on Flatbush Avenue, David's, to buy her a gift. He liked her very much. Then along came the war. And that took care of everybody. Harry had to go in. His friend, I met a friend of his, years and years after Harry was sick and in the hospital. And he worked with Harry at the welfare department. And he said, I thought Harry was faking when he first, acted like he was sick. Because I had told him that Harry was in the Veterans Hospital in Northport. He says, he must be really sick, I guess. He says, I thought he was faking, so that he wouldn't have to go into the Army, which a lot of boys did, because he was sick. He really cracked, he really went to pieces. It was there, and then all of a sudden this hit him. Something, he could never pick up a gun. I'm sure he was in the Army 10 days when they called. He was in the hospital.
So he was just in basic training?
He was in basic. He fell apart right there. He probably couldn't pick up a gun.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who can't, you know.
And then, okay, so Elaine also lived in the, that was in 24th Street. Was everyone except for you and
Jack and I were out.
Jack?
And your mother, I think, was already out too.
Because I remember visiting that place.
Yeah.
But she lived
She
on
was
Jack.
out, yeah. Mom was married, I think before Mark was born, she was already married, because I have pictures of your mother and father at Mark's bris.
Oh, I'd love to see that sometime. Yeah, that.
You have to come for an evening and I'll pull
Oh,
those
yeah.
pictures
Was
out.
that,
Your mother with her big hat, and Morris there. They were the godfathers.
Uh-huh.
Godfather, godmother, whatever. And,
so you had a birth, so you followed
mhm.
Jewish traditions? Because we really didn't growing up. I
I didn't have
don't
a bat
remember much
mitzvah.
Judaism at all.
I
But
didn't
you
have-
had a bris though for Mark. You did have
Oh, I had a bris for Mark in the hospital. They did it.
Uh-huh.
We had a big bris. You didn't have it for the boys? A bris?
For the boys, we did, yeah, but that was mainly because of Gil's family.
Oh.
Because I don't remember any Judaism growing up, except for Uncle Ben. Occasionally would have a Seder. I mean, he would
We-
run the Seder. It was at your place, but...
It was in my house,
Yeah.
and Ben would do the praying.
Ben would- yeah.
Um,
I remember that across the street on East 19th Street. And that other house.
1944, yeah. That was the first house we had. Had some big
I remember
gatherings
those.
there.
I remember those, the children's table.
Big parties, Seders, holidays.
But I remember that was the only Judaism that I had.
Yeah. No, I had it. First of all, not from my parents, but Jack's parents were very involved, you know. We had a bris, we had a pigeon ben for Mark. Mark went to Hebrew school. And Janie went to the temple for a while at Avenue R. That's why she's so religious.
But your family wasn't very religious at all. No, they
Not
were
at all.
kind of almost...
Grandpa Max used to go to shul the high holidays.
Mhm.
Bubby,
She didn't care. So she didn't keep
couldn't
kosher.
care less. She kept kosher. Kept both kosher meat, but the dishes were never changed. Passover, she never changed the dishes. We didn't have enough dishes to change. So.
Were they religious in Russia? Were they...
I don't think so.
No.
Maybe Bubby Bina followed, Jewish tradition, but they were not. They used an expression, the Jewish people, fanatished. They were not fanatished, which means they were not extreme.
Mhm.
They were Jews and that was it. And I'm sure that they kept kosher, I'm sure that Bubby Bina, where she was brought up, probably kept a kosher house, But Bubby was never, I used to hear people saying, oh, my mother uses one towel for the meat and one towel for the dairy.
Yeah.
Never. No,
Which
my
is
mother
interesting,
did.
yeah. Because most of my friends assume, when you talk to them, that came from a background where everyone kept kosher and was really pretty religious. And I said, no, I didn't.
And your grandparents, Morris's parents
No.
weren't, not at all.
No, theirs was even less. They were
And the
prophets.
girls weren't either, were they? They like Seal and
Harry was.
Who?
Harry was.
Harry was?
Seal was. I used to go to temple
Harry
sometimes
was-
with
yeah.
Harry. Right.
Oh, yeah?
And Anne, I don't think Anne was.
No.
Well, she was widowed very young.
Very
so I
young,
don't,
yeah.
I don't remember. I don't.
And yet she
I don't
didn't.
know.
I don't think she went to her son's marriage. The one that was married is a Catholic. Anne's son. The one in, the one in
I
where
don't
he
know.
lived, Maryland. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
she
don't
went to
know.
that wedding. I'm not
I don't
sure.
know. I don't know.
But I remember she, was a fuss about that because they were being married in church, and she couldn't accept that.
We were there. I was there.
You went to the wedding? Was Anne there? Do you remember? Or I don't think that anybody
I
went.
think she went. But no, it's
But she
interesting.
made-
So the family was really more secular Jews then. They really weren't
Secular, all of us, except for, I know I was because of Jack's parents.
Mhm.
Ethel and Ben were not.
David.
Harry, of course, not. Davy because of her family. They were very,
Because Eleanor's children became very religious.
yeah, because Bella's parents were. Father was a butcher, kosher butcher. He used to...
Who had the flower, who had the
used to-
florist?
Huh?
There were florists in their family, too. In Bella's family, didn't they have those, a florist shop?
Not that I know of.
I forget the name of the florist. I don't know, I thought they were involved with flowers. Bella's family.
Not that I know of, no. Her family, one brother was a lawyer. One brother was like Harry in the army, got sick, but he came out and got a job with the postal department. And she has a sister. Much about her sister. You knew her sister, didn't you? Bella's sister?
No.
Dottie. I thought you knew her. I don't know why. She's older than you are. And as I say, Bella's parents were very orthodox.
Right, and
Very,
then,
very clanny.
right. Okay, and then you came, and then Mom, we know about her, and Ruthie, you know, and Murray. So we pretty much covered, I think, the family here. Any fun things that you remember as a child? You and Mom and the sisters, any little anecdotes? I don't know, you said my mother kept walking into walls.
She would walk into the poles. And what was fun? I mean, we'd come up into the house and we were all on top of each other. It was really never any fun that we could laugh at and have fun. Unless we went somewhere and someone took us out. I used to run away a lot to Aunt Sarah's house because Rose and I were the same age, went to school at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a real goddamn it, Cousin Rose. She used to make my life miserable, but I'd go there anyhow.
You were flattened for punishment. They
There's
lived
some
close,
place to go,
they
huh?
lived close by.
No, I had to take the trolley car. I had to take the Broadway trolley car. They were on Hopkinson Avenue. And Uncle Abe had a store on Hopkinson Avenue.
I remember them.
So I used to go,
East New York.
Rose, huh?
Is that East New York, Hopkinson?
It's sort of East New York, yeah, I would say. Just below.
Yeah.
Just below East New
And
York.
then they had,
It's more like Bed-Stuy.
Mm-hmm.
then they had Gloria,
Gloria was Rose's daughter.
Rose's daughter, right?
Yeah. She,
Cousin Gloria.
she and Mark, well, no, she was older than Mark. She's much older, about 4 or 5 years older than
And
Mark.
she, was she an only child?
Gloria was the only child. No, they had a son. They were separated for a while, Rose and her husband. They were married, they were going together, and then they were married, and Gloria was born right away, about 9 months after they were married. And he was a college graduate, couldn't pass the bar, and Aunt Sarah was not very patient with him. She didn't like him, and he couldn't get a job. It's very bad. You know, things were very bad. Couldn't pass the bar.
There are a lot of
couldn't get-
impatient women in that family.
couldn't get a job. And she made everybody's life miserable, and they separated because she was not about to support him. She took Rose and the child into her home. And it was rough because they kept chasing Nat and they kept accusing him. It was it was really a bitter separation. They were never divorced. And immediately Aunt Sarah knew a man who was single, and he became Rose's boyfriend. I mean, she did what her mother wanted her to do. She needed somebody to support her while she was taking care of Gloria.
What happened? Yeah, to
And
the other
Rose went to work, and then Sarah took care of Gloria.
Okay, so that was Sarah. What happened to the other aunts
To the other one,
and their offspring? Are any of them still alive?
Larry is gay, and he lives in San Francisco.
And who was that? Larry is
That would be Rose's son. His
Gloria's
name is
brother.
Lawrence, Gloria's brother, right. And they make no bones about it. When we had our 50th wedding anniversary, Rose and Nat came, and we asked about Lawrence. And
They
he
came.
said,
They were still together.
Huh?
Rose and Nat. Even
Well,
though
they
were
went
separated,
together
or
after
came
they
back
were
together?
separated until Gloria was about 5 or 6. Then he got a job, and things were getting better. And you know, they were high school sweethearts, and you weren't going to break them up. And they went back together, and that's when they had. See, Gloria must have been around 9 or 10 when Larry was born. And Larry went to school, he went to college, and he also worked for the welfare department. And then he made an announcement, and Rose and that, the family were talking. And he said, he is gay, he's my son, and we love him. And his friends used to come to the house, and they were all very, very close. And Larry moved to San Francisco, where he lived with some young man that he has a relationship with. When Rose died, I saw Larry again. You know, a very sweet young man, lives in San Francisco. All his friends were at Rose's funeral, a whole
Very
group
nice,
of them,
yeah.
and they all had something to say. The eulogy. She used to go there, and she'd make food for them and have a good time with all of them. And they all came to the funeral. It was really wonderful. So that's, and I haven't heard from Nat since then. I mean,
That's still alive?
I don't know if he's still around, but what happened was they were very active in the senior center where they lived. They lived in Flatbush, where you used to live in that area, the Vanderveer Apartments. And they had a senior center there, and Rose and Nat became very active. They were like directors of it, because there was a whole load of them at the funeral, and Rose died. And then right after that, Jack got sick. And that, you know, I didn't keep in touch anymore. Nobody made him call me either, so that's the way it happened. And then I read in the paper that Gloria's husband died. And when Rose died, we wanted to visit, you know, they were sitting Shiva, and Gloria said, well, my dad is coming with me, and we're not having any Shiva services, but we'll be home on such and such a day in so many hours. And I said, listen, if you're going to make it so,
You're not coming.
you know, I don't need this. Just say, that's it, we're not receiving, and we had our Shiva. Rose was sick for many years before she died.
What did she die from?
Cancer.
And Bobby, when did she first have problems with the heart? You said she always had problems with her stomach.
Our Bubby?
Yeah.
She didn't have trouble with her heart until a few years before she died. Just age.
How old was she when she died?
She was about 78.
So she did live pretty long.
Yeah. She died, I was
pregnant with Mark, right? 1964.
So that's 30-some years ago?
Mark is 31.
That's right. Sure. I had just started to work for Youth Guild then, and I was
So she was 78.
She was between 75 and 78. I don't know exactly, but that
Well, actually, we could
well,
figure it out,
actually, if
because
I can
she
figure it
was
out, she was
28,
28 when, yeah.
So she was 78 because it was
That's right.
1964.
That's right. Right.
Now what about Grandfather?
He died, he was only about 63 when he died. He died when the year Janie was born, which is, say, 46. No, Janie is 50. When I say 46, 50 years ago, she was born in 46, and that's when he died. Because we were in the hospital at the same time. He was in the Jewish hospital.
And he died from complications of diabetes.
Complicated
gangrene,
diabetes, his toes, his legs.
That would have been able to have been handled today.
Today, they would have chopped off his legs.
But wouldn't have gotten to that point today, probably.
No, they didn't do. Listen, just 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. I want to light some stove so I can eat it.
Okay. Are there any family records, death certificates, birth certificates, marriage certificates, immigration or naturalization papers that
I
you or anyone
think I have somewhere in the papers, I can't find it now, I have their passports.
Oh, that would be great.
I think I do, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I have to look and see.
Was that
I don't know whether it was
information?
theirs or Jack's parents' passports.
Mhm.
I'm going to look through my papers and see.
And you said it,
But otherwise, there's no records of when they came. The only thing that I remember as a child, opening a trunk, and it was full of Russian rubles. And this was during the revolution, or after the revolution,
Right.
so they were absolutely worthless.
if you were to give advice to Joan or me or to your children or your grandchildren, even to children for the future, future generations, what would it be?
What would it be? The advice I would give them? Be honest. Educate yourself. Be honest with yourself. Know what you can do, and do it to the best of your ability. But try harder all the time.
Do you have any kind of favorite poem or saying or song or joke?
Well, I have one song that they sang at my wedding, which was I Love You Truly. It was Jack's favorite, my favorite. Otherwise, I enjoy listening to classical music. I don't recognize all of it, and some of it I enjoy listening to. But favorite popular music would be I Love You Truly. And also to my children, I want to say they have to learn to love and be loving, which is very important.
Have any special recipes been preserved from past generations?
Preserved in my mind.
In your mind? Not written down?
No, not written down. I know how to make gefilte fish like my mother made it.
Okay, tell us how.
With chicken soup. Well, you have to start with quality. First, you need good fish. You need good pike and whitefish. And you have to have the fish man take it off the skin. And then it has to be ground. And then it has to be chopped with onion and seasonings. And you have to taste it to make sure the seasoning is right. Put the eggs in. I mean, I know how to make it and I know how to cook it, but it's not written down.
Oral history. It's called.
Oral history, right. Also, Bubby's matzo balls, which were beaten eggs with matzo meal, and when the texture was right, she rolled them up and threw them in the boiling water. She didn't put them in the refrigerator, she didn't make the simmers, she didn't measure, she stirred. You don't beat that stuff, you just stir it.
See who I take after.
And then it's good. Throw it in the boiling water. Otherwise, her recipes were very simple.
See, now I'm sorry that I didn't try her borscht and shop. Because now I know how good they are for you. Now I would.
I buy it in the jar.
Because we need things in every color. And we need the red.
I take the borscht. I usually buy it with the diced beets, which is just borscht and lemon juice. And sometimes I add a little sour cream. You don't need a lot of it because it is fatty. And I'd rather use the less of the regular cream than the low fat. I don't know, they do something to that low fat cream. Or you can use yogurt. You can use low fat yogurt, which is good. And then if you boil a potato and throw it in your borscht, that's all you need. And a piece of matzah. Take the matzah and you crumble it up like farfel. And you put that in the borscht. Delicious. Then you take your shab. That too you can dress up.
What is shab?
Shab is sorrel leaves. Sorrel, S-O-R-R-E-L. It's a leaf. It's a sour leaf. And it's long, and you take the stem off, and you just cook that in boiled water. I mean, you wash it, of course.
Is it kind of bitter?
It's bitter, it's kind of a little. But when you're cooking it to get the liquid, you cook it with scallions and the shab itself and salt. Then you treat it. You beat eggs into it. You make it like creamy. And when you're serving it, you put cucumbers in it, tomatoes. You almost make it like a gazpacho if you want to. Because the gazpacho is it's a soup that every country has different recipes. Everybody says, oh, mine is the best. But you take shab. I did this myself. And I took the shab from the jar, which it's all cooked and ready and seasoned, and it has the egg in it. And then I cut in some scallions and cucumbers and tomatoes and a little cream. And that too, you put that with a warm potato. Delicious.
Well, someone told me recently that we need a lot more bitters in our diet. We don't need enough bitter.
The shab is good. If you read some of the New York Times recipe, the European recipes, they use a lot of the sorrel leaves. They use it in soup.
What do you get?
I was at a fancy vegetable store. You ask for it, they'll tell you. Even if you go into an Italian, or an Asian, you tell them shab. If they have Jewish customers, they'll know what you want.
Now in Russia, what kind of plants do they have there in Russia? Do they have the same trees? Have we had the same fruits?
Well, from what Bubby told me, they were in a very cold area because she said the winters
they had
were
clean air, though. They had clean air.
The winters were bitter. They were bitter cold. The big thing there was potatoes and turnips. root vegetables from the ground. There used to be a vegetable they call knob celery. It was like a root, and they called it a celery, probably from the celery plant or something. And that went into soups. And then there were turnips was a big thing. White turnips were big.
Did they have carrots and...
Carrots, yeah, you had carrots.
and-
You had onions, potatoes, and carrots. That was really basic. And parsnips were a big thing throughout Europe. I mean, during wartime in France, they used to live on parsnips.
That's green? Or they or white?
Parsnip
What
is a root
parsnip?
vegetable. A
Like a
parsnip
carrot?
is a
Like a
root
white carrot?
vegetable. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
Like a white carrot?
It looks like a white carrot, and it's got a
okay.
green... Sometimes it comes trimmed. What are you looking at?
No, I was looking to make sure it was still moving. It's moving. No, the tape. What about greens? Did they have? Did
They must have had greens of some kind. They
They
must
didn't have
have...
broccoli, though.
I don't
They
think
wouldn't have had
they're broccoli. No.
They would have had beans. Or beans.
Beans they probably
Soybeans. Did they
had.
have any soybeans?
I don't know, soybeans. They had beblach. They call it beblach. You know the chickpeas?
Yes.
They had that. Bubby used to soak those overnight and cook them and drain them and then put pepper over them. We used to eat them. They were delicious. Used to be a man come around for a penny. He had a little portable stove, metal stove that he'd come around with, and he'd sell Hesa Arbus. You know what that is? Hot beans. Arbus beans. And you gave him a penny or 2 cents. He gave you a little bag with about 10 little beans in it. Or sweet potatoes he'd sell from this little oven. In the wintertime, we used to buy that stuff from him.
So that was a good part of your diet. Everything
That was a good
fresh,
part. The
nothing-
food was good. It was fresh and good and good quality. She used to save the chicken livers sometimes, and we had a coal stove, and Bubby would put the livers on a little piece of brown paper, and after the stove got hot and the coals were red, she put the liver in the pot where it was hot, like a barbecue.
Mhm.
And those livers would get.
Just
You'd have
right.
to be near her when she was doing it, because maybe it was 2 or 3 livers and we were 7 kids, and
That was it.
you had to grab it.
Did you have a grinder, like a meat grinder? like
No,
my
she
mom
used to
had?
get the meat ground that's in the butcher store.
Oh, really? How come my mother had to do it by herself?
Your mother did it?
Yeah, I used to help her grind it
Why did she
with
do that?
crackers.
I don't know why she did that, unless she bought the meat she liked and then ground.
Meat and
I used to have a grinder too.
Yeah, it used to go on the
But
table.
then,
a
yeah,
metal
right.
grinder. Used to
I had
clamp
one of
onto
those
the table.
too,
We still
yeah.
have it up in the closet.
Then we had one that was electric, and they were a pain in the neck to take apart and clean.
Yeah,
And then the butchers used to grind it for you. You pick
Okay.
out your meat and they'd grind it.
yeah.
But Bubby used to take the meat home, wash it, kosher it, and I remember going back with a dish and a cover on it to the butcher. He was on the corner, we lived here, and have him grind the meat for us. He would put it in the grinder and grind it. Of course,
We
you
used
got,
to grind it ourselves. I remember grinding it, throwing the crackers in saltines to make it go further.
maybe that's
It
what.
would stretch. It would stretch it. It was the neck meat and tenderloin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell the story about the chickens, because the lady who.
Bubby used to go into the butcher store, and there'd be a lady sitting in a chair, and next to her was a big bag and a dirty apron, and you'd pick out your chicken. It was a big metal counter, and the chickens were laying there. They were dead. They were killed already. They all had to be killed by the neck,
Right.
And the women would pick it up, and they'd blow to see that the skin was right. The color of the skin had to be a good color. And then the butcher would pay the butcher, and you take it to the lady. She used to pluck, throw the feathers into the bag, give you chicken. You already paid for the chicken. Give the chicken back to the butcher, flip it, take everything out of it, clean it out, cut it in quarters, wrap your chicken in paper, and send you on your way.
So you didn't go running after the chickens? They weren't alive.
Once a year we used to have live chickens.
Oh.
They used to call it Shlokapuris. That was around the high holidays. I think it was around Sukkot time, something like that. They take a live chicken. My neighbors next door to me in Brooklyn used to do that. They're very the Sephardic. They follow every traditional thing. Very orthodox. They used to get chickens into the garage and keep them. And then you grab the chicken by the legs a man has to come and do it, like, I don't know whether he's a rabbi or not, puts the chicken over your head, says a prayer, that means all the evil is leaving you, and then you can take the chicken and have it killed and eat it, or give it away to charity, whatever you want to do. This chicken has done its job.
Are there any, speaking of that, any other, not Bobomyces, but, you know, like, other things, stories about good, no, for things for good luck, or any other, superstitions, or?
Well, if you cracked an egg,
Okay.
they did that with your mother when she was abducted by the man taken to the roof. Did she ever tell you that story?
Not
All right. Well, what happened was she was very frightened, and Bubby Bina decided that she was going to calm her. She took the egg and she cracked it and put it in a glass. And she told your mother to look in there. And did she see the man? And she said, yes. You know, which is a woman. And what did he look like? And she described, well, we got rid of that man and he's not going to harm you anymore. He doesn't exist anymore. That's it. And then you take the egg, do you scramble it or you throw it out?
That's interesting. Any other little things? I know there's things with red ribbons, and I just...
I told you the story about Grandma used to heal the boils
Yeah.
and the powder for the teeth.
Now, when people moved in, like, to a home, there were certain things that they would do, like salt or...
Oh, bread and salt. You had to bring bread and salt before you move into the house so that you will have, you know, plenty of everything.
What about red ribbon? Anything? Did they do
A
anything?
red ribbon was that you don't give the baby the evil eye.
No, okay.
And when a baby is born, wait 1 minute, I just want to take a look at those chickens if they don't burn.
Okay, I'll be right back.
When a baby is born, and very beautiful, the grandparents, the parents worry about an evil eye. So, one of the things they would do, there was something they used with their fingers. They went like this with the finger. How could you describe it? The thumb went between the pointer and the middle finger. You put the thumb. See, and you went like this to the baby so they wouldn't get an evil eye, and you would pin a ribbon, a red ribbon on the baby's crib or his clothes or whatever.
So now your mother did that on the kids'
Where,
crib,
like
and
this?
I never asked. I never knew what. Put
She
it on
put-
lungs.
Oh yeah?
No, they never did that.
Yeah, this you knew?
No, I'd never heard of
This-
that. But the
this
red
is-
ribbon, I just didn't know
Yeah,
why
this
they
is
did it.
a sign. When somebody passes the baby and they look too, the Orthodox do it, they look too close, they go like this. In other words, like the Italians would do certain things with their hands too, you know. And the red ribbon. Then, when the baby is born, before the baby goes into the crib, under the mattress, you put candy and nuts. And the baby should have a sweet life. Drożdżynki mit mandlin. You know what drożdżynki and mandlin are? Raisins and nuts. You put that under the baby's mattress and the baby's going to have a sweet life.
That's nice. Any other?
What else can I think of? They shouldn't get a kind of horror. That's the thing too. You know, what are you drinking?
Vita-fruit.
Grapefruit?
Vita-fruit.
Oh, Vita-fruit.
Quality.
Quality. That, and what's that? That's a nourishing.
Vita-like bar. Fiber.
Fiber. Good.
Say,
All right.
Bubby would be proud.
All right. Listen, I'm sitting here watching my dear niece Joan eating her Sunrider food, and as she says, and I'm beginning to agree with her, Bubby DeVita would be very proud of her.
It's about quality of life.
Everything is good, and as she would say, see, now we have to learn from my grandchildren.
Right.
First she used to say she had to learn from her children.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's learning from her grandchildren
And her great-grandchildren.
and great-grandchildren.
And
And
great-great.
great-great-grandchildren.
Great. She's got great. Okay. That's it. Thank you very